Come, come, let's hear the moral story. Come, come, let's hear the moral story.
Hello there, little ones, and welcome to tonight's Bedtime Explainer. Go ahead and tuck yourselves in, pull those blankets right up to your chin, and just get as cozy as you possibly can. We all know the story of that sweet girl who went to the ball. But tonight, we're going to explore a truly beautiful secret about what happened after that happily ever after. So, what did happen after the glass slipper fit perfectly? Well, we all know that Cinderella and her Prince Charming were married in this grand celebration, right? And they ruled their kingdom happily and kindly for many, many years. The famous glass slipper was even kept safe in the Royal Museum. But even with all of that joy, Cinderella actually carried this one quiet, heavy sorrow hiding in her heart, especially when she looked up at the starry night sky. You see, late at night, when the whole palace was fast asleep, Cinderella would often sit all alone out in the royal garden. She'd just sit quietly beside the blooming roses with the moonlight resting on her shoulders, crying soft little tears. She would whisper sadly to the stars, "Why can't I become a mother?" She had so much love to give, and she wished more than absolutely anything to share it with a child of her own. This brings us to part 1 of our explainer, the golden pond. Well, the stars were actually listening. One evening, right there in that garden, this beautiful, shimmering light began to glow among the flowers. The lake grew brighter and warmer, and it just wrapped Cinderella in a comforting hug. It was her fairy godmother, returning right when she was needed the absolute most. And she appeared with 3 very gentle, kind of unusual instructions. First, she told Cinderella she must take her greatest symbol of happiness, that famous glass slipper, and drift it across a pond whose waters shine gold. Then she had to pluck a glass lotus from the water and give its petals to the 3 people who had mistreated her in the past. The fairy godmother knew her future child needed to be born into a truly loving, completely healed family. Now, Cinderella was surprised, of course, but she was also incredibly brave. So, she asked her prince for permission, carefully took her precious glass slipper from the museum, and walked right out to the golden pond just outside the kingdom. The shining glass slipper floated out across the glowing, peaceful water, and then, slowly and quietly, it just disappeared beneath the surface. Cinderella had actually given up her greatest treasure, completely trusting that our kindness would bring her a brand new kind of happiness. And that leads us right into part 2, the journey of the petals. The very next morning, as the sun peeked over the hills and painted the whole sky in these soft pinks and yellows, Cinderella went back to the pond. And right there, blooming perfectly in the very center of the water, was a delicate, sparkling glass lotus. As she gently reached out to pick it, she noticed something special. It held exactly 3 glowing petals. 3 soft, glowing pieces of glass meant for the 3 specific people in her life who most needed to learn about kindness and forgiveness. So, Cinderella's gentle journey to heal her family's hearts was about to take her far and wide. This path to forgiveness would lead her first to an old cottage to find her stepsister Anastasia, then up to an upstairs room to find her other stepsister Drizella, and finally, she was going to have to travel all the way out to a faraway, lonely island to find her stepmother, Lady Tremaine. Her very first stop was that old, quiet cottage, and there she found Anastasia, just sitting grumpily and knitting a long gray scarf. When Anastasia asked her why she was there, Cinderella simply and so kindly said, "I want our family together again." And you know what? Anastasia lowered her eyes in shame. For the absolute first time, she truly understood just how lonely Cinderella used to feel all those years ago. Tears actually filled her eyes. She apologized so sincerely, and Cinderella gently handed her the very first glowing petal. Right after that, Cinderella quietly climbed the stairs to find Drizella. Now, at first, Drizella stood tall and crossed her arms proudly, kind of pretending she didn't care at all. But Cinderella didn't use any anger. She only spoke with pure, soft kindness. And that kindness was so warm that it literally melted Drizella's proud heart right into tears. She completely broke down, crying and begging for forgiveness for all the cruel things she'd ever done. Cinderella just smiled and gave her the second petal, which glows so warmly right there in Drizella's hands. But the hardest part was still ahead, bringing us to part 3, the Dark Island. Without even a hint of hesitation, Cinderella bravely sailed across these stormy seas, where huge waves crashed and sharp rocks tore at her sails. Deep in the twisted, dark woods of a lonely island, she finally found her stepmother. Lady Tremaine was wearing long, dark robes, standing right before a bubbling black cauldron. There were these spooky green flames dancing all around her as she stirred strange, dark potions. The moment she saw Cinderella, she spun around in anger, hissing and sending dark magical blasts flying through the air. But as the spells flew toward her, Cinderella didn't run away. Not at all. She stepped closer, with tears in her eyes, and said so gently, "You hurt me deeply, but I still love you. I don't want revenge. I only want my family back." Just step by step, dodging those green flames, she kept moving closer and closer to the person who had hurt her the most. And then, she did the bravest thing you could possibly imagine. She reached her stepmother and just wrapped her in a tight, loving hug. Almost instantly, that simple, warm embrace completely shattered all the dark magic, just like broken glass. The spooky green flames vanished right into thin air. Love had actually won. Lady Tremaine fell to her knees, just crying as she finally truly realized all the pain she had caused for so many years. Trembling, she opened her hands and accepted the third and final lotus petal from Cinderella. With a soft, breaking voice, she whispered the words that healed all of them. "Forgive me, child." After all that time, she had finally found peace. And this beautiful moment takes us to our final section, part 4 of Family Reunited. With the dark magic completely gone, the family sailed safely back home to the kingdom. Anastasia and Drizella warmly welcomed their mother, and for the very first time in years, the whole family sat together peacefully, just sharing smiles and love. And soon after, the absolute greatest magic of all happened. Joyful palace bells rang out across the entire kingdom. Cinderella's greatest wish had finally come true. She gave birth to 3 beautiful little daughters with sparkling eyes and incredibly kind hearts. The whole kingdom celebrated the wonderful news for weeks, with soft music, joyful dancing, and these beautiful, glowing lanterns floating peacefully up into the night sky. And so, the true magic of the glass slipper was fully revealed. You see, it wasn't just about a prince and a princess falling in love at a fancy ball. By giving it up to the golden pond, it became a symbol of deep forgiveness, of a broken family reunited at last, and of a happily ever after that was far, far greater than anyone had ever even imagined. And that brings us to the end of our gentle bedtime explainer tonight. It leaves us with a really lovely question to think about. Who will you share your kindness with tomorrow? Because just like Cinderella, your kindness has a beautiful, glowing magic all its own. I want you to keep that thought close to your heart as you close your eyes tonight. I wish you the sweetest dreams, little ones. Have a wonderful, peaceful sleep. Good night.